The jungle devoured sound the moment the sun disappeared. It always did. Light bled out of the sky until nothing remained but a dim, underwater blue, as if the world itself had sunk beneath the surface. The canopy closed overhead like a sealed lid, trapping heat, moisture, and silence. For the Australian Recon platoon stepping out that night, the darkness wasn't an obstacle. It was protection. It was concealment. It was often the only reason they survived. They moved before midnight. There were no whispered speeches, no last-minute encouragements. Only motion. Quiet hands checking webbing, fingers tightening straps, the faint rustle of fabric deliberately slowed to avoid sound. Every man knew exactly what he carried, and more importantly, what he did not. Recon patrols survived by weight discipline. Too much gear made you slow. Too much noise made you dead. Each soldier carried the essentials only. An SLR rifle, 5 or 6 magazines, water bottles taped to prevent clatter, rations compressed and wrapped, a poncho, a compact medical kit, and when assigned, a radio battery. Nothing more. Platoon Sergeant McAdams moved along the line, tapping each man once on the shoulder. The signal to stand. No words were needed. Trust replaced language. McAdams was a veteran, calm, deliberate, and shaped by jungle warfare. He had walked more miles through dense bush than most men had walked on pavement. He understood the terrain not just by sight, but by instinct. He sensed danger the way others sensed pressure before a storm. Spacing was strict. 5 meters between men during daylight. 7 to 10 at night. Close enough to maintain contact. Far enough that one mistake wouldn't wipe out the patrol. When they slipped beyond the perimeter wire of the temporary fire support base, the jungle changed instantly. Inside the wire meant artillery, radios, extraction plans. Outside meant discipline and silence. Nothing else. The first hour was always the hardest. Boots settled into a rhythm against damp earth. Wet leaves brushed sleeves without sound. Mosquitoes swarmed, ignored by men who no longer reacted to bites. Sweat came quickly, soaking shirts and running down faces. You didn't wipe it away. Movement caused noise. You let it drip. Every man scanned constantly. Low ground. Mid-level brush. High canopy. The jungle could hide a squad 10 meters away. In darkness, it could hide a battalion. The mission was simple to describe and brutal to execute. Track a North Vietnamese Army division moving south. Identify routes, habits, formations. Get close enough to understand its intent, without ever being seen. If the NVA discovered the patrol, the outcome would be decided in minutes. Recon units weren't built for firefights. They were built to avoid them. McAdams raised a fist. The platoon froze. No shifting weight. No adjusting straps. No brushing sweat from eyes. Freezing was a skill learned the hard way. You stopped instantly mid-step if necessary. A leech crawling under your sleeve didn't matter. Stillness saved lives. McAdams listened. Something moved ahead. Faint, irregular, not metal. Loose sounds, canteen straps, hammock cord, gear being adjusted. He counted silently. Patience mattered more than speed. Rushing invited death. After a full minute, he signaled a crawl forward. The point man slid ahead, belly pressed close to the earth, flowing between roots like a shadow. His job was the most dangerous. He was the first to see everything, and the first to die if things went wrong. When he returned, his hand signal was clear. Track found. The platoon shifted direction toward a narrow trail barely visible to untrained eyes. But the signs were unmistakable. Pressed soil, snapped twigs, shallow depressions where dozens, maybe hundreds of boots had passed. This wasn't animal movement. This was organized military traffic. McAdams knelt, brushing soil lightly with his fingers. The edges of the prints were sharp, moist, fresh, 2 hours old at most. Nearby leaves glistened faintly, not from rain, but from sweat and dripping canteens. Another hour, and they would have dried. The NVA were close. Very close. The patrol shifted mindset instantly. Breathing slowed. Steps lightened. They moved parallel to the trail, never on it. Walking enemy paths was how inexperienced soldiers died. Booby traps, tripwires. Listening posts placed exactly where men expected to walk. The Australians stayed off to the side, forcing their way through thicker ground instead of exposed lanes. 30 minutes later, the jungle offered another clue. A smell. Smoke, not the heavy odor of a campfire, but the thin trace of a cigarette burned quickly. NVA soldiers sometimes smoked during forced march to stay alert. If the patrol could smell it, the smoker wasn't far. The rear scout checked frequently, watching for counter-tracking. In the jungle, hunters were often hunted. The platoon reached a small clearing, no more than 10 meters across. Grass flattened. Fresh machete marks on a tree. Then McAdams spotted it. A deep footprint in wet mud. Wide, heavy, not one. Man. Many. They had found the flank of the NVA division. McAdams motioned the platoon back into dense vegetation. They formed a loose perimeter and listened. No explanation was needed. They were now operating behind enemy lines. Silence wasn't just discipline, it was survival. The darkness no longer felt threatening. It felt useful. Dawn arrived without mercy. A gray haze filtered through the canopy, revealing shapes that had vanished overnight. Morning didn't mean relief. It meant stricter control. Daylight demanded slower movement, lower profiles, sharper awareness. The trail became clearer with light. Overlapping footprints, boots, sandals, bare feet. Deep heel strikes showed heavy loads. Lighter prints hinted at runners or signals personnel. The ground told a story for those who knew how to read it. Tracking wasn't just visual. It was environmental. Broken branches. Charcoal smudges on bark. Grass bent, but still wet. Each sign narrowed the time gap. The Australians stayed off the trail, scanning from cover. Positions rotated silently to prevent fatigue. The jungle thickened as they moved north. Dense vines, tangled roots, narrow corridors that punished mistakes. Spacing remained tight. Errors were contained. An hour into daylight, McAdams halted the platoon, pressed leaves in a wide circle. A rest point. He lifted a thin metal tube from the mud. A radio. BATTERY casing. Signals unit. Higher command nearby. Details were written quickly on waterproof notepads. Every scrap of information mattered. They pushed on. Soft sounds ahead. Cloth shifting. A pack being lowered. The platoon melted into the jungle. 3 NVA soldiers rested near the track. Hammocks tied. A case leaned against trees. One heated food quietly. The Australians watched from meters away, unmoving. Uniforms, weapons, fatigue, direction of travel. Everything was noted. One NVA soldier turned briefly toward the foliage. No one moved. Minutes passed. The enemy packed up and disappeared down the trail. Only then did McAdams signal movement. Fear wasn't panic. It was focus sharpened to a blade. A single rule repeating endlessly. Do not be seen. Rain came hard later, hammering the canopy. It masked sound but erased tracks. Ponchos were adjusted carefully. Arms stayed free. When the rain stopped, steam rose. In the thick silence, radio chatter crackled faintly. The signaler listened only. 3 companies moving south. Heavy weapons trailing. Gold. By midday, heavier tracks appeared. Mortar, machine guns, ammunition carriers. They halted, rationed water, ate silently. An NVA platoon passed within arm's reach. Boots inches away. No reaction. By evening, The patrol located a staging area, numerous prints, ration tins, weapon stand impressions. Confirmation. Night. Return. By the fourth day, the Australians had become ghosts. Fatigue gnawed at muscles and minds alike, but discipline held. Mist filled the forest. Morale clues appeared: discarded gear, broken straps. The enemy was tired. Then, from a ridge, they saw it. The division, hundreds moving below. Infantry, porters, mortar, RPGs. The Australians watched. Invisible, a flank patrol moved toward them. Freeze. Boots passed close enough to feel through the ground. Then the patrol withdrew. The Australians recorded everything. They slipped away before dark. Silent, unseen, ready to use what they had learned.